us.
엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
Coming up on Arirang News, U.S. President Joe Biden tells Israel that the other team appears to be behind the Gaza hospital explosion, which Israel and Hamas are both trading blame. This as he landed in Tel Aviv in a display of support for the Israelis. Chinese leader Xi Jinping touts the continuously deepening political mutual trust between China and Russia as he sits down with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Their talks come on the sidelines of the Belt and Road Initiative summit in Beijing, calling each other close friends. South Korea's auto exports for the first 9 months of this year rose to a new all-time high for the period. It's mainly thanks to the eco-friendly cars, with its outbound shipment for the first 3 quarters of this year exceeding the total for last year. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We start in Israel, where U.S. President Joe Biden has now landed. He tells the Israeli leader that the deadly hospital explosion in Gaza, which killed hundreds of people, seems to have been carried out by the other team. This amid Palestinian claims of it being an Israeli bombing, while the Israeli military blames Islamic Jihad. 송유진 leads us off.
At least 500 people died following the explosion on Tuesday night at the Al-Ali Al-Arabi Hospital in central Gaza. The hospital was crowded with victims of Israeli airstrikes, as well as thousands of displaced people seeking shelter. Most of the victims are known to be women, children, and refugees. The Palestinian Health Ministry says many are still under the rubble, but it's unclear who's responsible.
What happened tonight is a huge tragedy and a war massacre that cannot be tolerated or allowed to pass without accountability. Tonight, an Israel airstrike hit Al-Ali Hospital in Gaza City.
Intelligence from few sources that we have in our hands indicates that the Islamic Jihad is responsible for the failed rocket launch which hit the hospital in Gaza.
The deadly blast was also brought up during U.S. President Joe Biden's bilateral meeting on Wednesday with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Tel Aviv. Biden told the Israeli leader that the bombing appears as though it was done by the, quote, other team. He arrived in Israel on Wednesday morning on what's seen as a diplomatic mission to help ease tensions in the region and allow much-needed humanitarian aid to enter Gaza. After his meeting with Netanyahu, Biden will hold wider talks with Israel's war cabinet. According to White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby, Biden will emphasize that he doesn't want the conflict to widen. He'll also address the humanitarian situation in Gaza. Later in the day, the American leader is scheduled to meet with Israeli first responders, families of the victims, and Israeli President Isaac Herzog. Biden had originally planned to visit Jordan as well for a 4-way summit with King Abdullah II, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi of Egypt, and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas. But Jordan canceled the summit shortly after the hospital bombing. Though his trip to Jordan has been called off, Biden intends to speak with the Middle East leaders on his flight back to Washington on Wednesday night. 송유진, Arirang News.
The leaders of China and Russia sat down for talks in Beijing today on the margins of China's Belt and Road Forum at the height of the war in the Middle East. Calling each other close friends, the two touched upon their close diplomatic and economic cooperation. Choi Min-jung brings us up to speed.
Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin met on Wednesday on the sidelines of the Belt and Road Forum in Beijing. The two leaders held a bilateral meeting to strengthen their partnership amid escalating tensions in the Middle East. Putin told Xi that close coordination between the two countries is crucial during difficult times.
With the current difficult conditions, close foreign policy coordination is especially required, which is what we are doing.
The situation between Israel and Gaza is expected to have been one of the key focuses of Wednesday's meeting. Beijing recently criticized Israel for going beyond self-defense, while Moscow called for a humanitarian ceasefire. Meanwhile, the Chinese leader touted Beijing and Moscow's bilateral trade.
Our bilateral trade volume has reached a new record high, and we're constantly moving towards our joint goal of $200 billion.
Xi also highlighted their strong friendship, saying that the two have met 42 times in the past decade. He expressed hopes that China and Russia would contribute to each other's development, the protection of international fairness and justice, and the common development of the world. Also on Wednesday, Xi and Putin attended the opening ceremony of the Third Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation, alongside representatives from more than 130 countries. There, Xi said that when China does well, the world will get even better. And calling Xi his dear friend, Putin praised China's initiative to bring the world together. Meanwhile, Xi warned against economic coercion and decoupling, criticizing the West's push to reduce dependency on China's economy.
Viewing others' development as a threat or taking economic interdependence as a risk will not make one's own life any better or speed up one's own development.
This year's conference marks the 10th anniversary of the launch of China's Belt and Road Initiative, which seeks to connect China, Central Asia, Africa, and Europe via land and maritime networks to stimulate economic growth. Choi Min-jang, Arirang News.
Attending an event marking the 78th National Police Day, President Yoon doubled down on his will to protect the vulnerable from vicious crimes. On that note, he vowed to restructure the police. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon reports.
President Yoon Suk-yeol has promised his support to the nation's police as he called on the agency to be especially tough on crimes targeting the vulnerable, while reorganizing the structure for it to be more centered around public safety.
특히 성폭력, 아동학대, 가정폭력, 스토킹과 같이 약자를 상대로 하는 범죄는 절대 용납되어서는 안 됩니다. 국민들께서 일상에서 범죄의 위협과 두려움을 느끼지 않고 안전하게 사실 수 있도록 모든 역량을 집중해 주시기 바랍니다.
This came as the nation's police will be celebrating its 78th anniversary on Saturday and held the National Police Day ceremony at the former presidential office, Cheongwadae, in advance on Wednesday. The ceremony included presidential recognition for the police officers for their achievements, as well as those who have been lost in the line of duty. 31 representatives from other nations' police agencies, as well as international organizations' police departments, attended the anniversary event as well to enhance cooperation. Yoon at the event also repeated his promise to deliver better support to the agency with new equipment, which he has already been promising since the series of random knife attacks in August.
흉악 범죄에 대한 효과적 대응을 위해 방범 장구, 저위험 권총 등 신형 첨단 장구를 신속히 보급할 것입니다.
Police Commissioner Yoon also faced the reality during the ceremony, saying that the anxieties and fears that penetrate the daily lives of the people pose a new challenge to law enforcement, promising to keep communities safe. However, President Yoon didn't forget to cheer on the police as it has come a long way since 78 years ago, mentioning that the arrest rate is around 95% and phishing scams have gone down by 30% on year. He also said the sacrifices will be deservedly compensated. President Yoon, ending his keynote speech, said that a nation's #1 reason for existence is to keep its citizens safe and that he will do his part to support the police's sacrifices. He also urged police officers to never forget this fundamental duty of securing public safety and always strive to be the police of the people. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
President Yoon asked the U.S. state of New Jersey for greater support and care for South Korean nationals and firms there as they invest and expand business ties in high-tech areas. On Wednesday, Yoon met with New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy in Seoul and discussed ways to deepen cooperation between the two sides, as well as provide more support for the Korean community and companies operating locally in Jersey. The South Korean leader said New Jersey is a vital base for Korean firms to expand into the eastern part of the U.S., and that around 80 Korean companies are operating in the state, contributing greatly to the creation of local jobs in New Jersey. Meanwhile, Murphy said he hopes to discover more opportunities for economic cooperation, especially in fostering innovation ecosystems in areas like life sciences, technology, and clean energy. He added he hopes that the driver's license mutual recognition agreement signed between the two sides will contribute to the expansion of people-to-people exchanges too. Despite South Korea's sluggish exports in the recent months, the country's overseas auto shipments have posted an all-time high in the first 9 months of this year, driven by eco-friendly cars. Park Gun-woo has the numbers.
South Korea's auto exports hit new highs in the January to September period this year, reaching $52.1 billion on the back of record-high eco-friendly car exports to North America and the EU. According to the Industry Ministry on Wednesday, in the first 9 months of 2023, some $18 billion worth of green automobiles were exported, exceeding the total for 2022, which amounted to $16.1 billion. And with total car exports rising on year for 15 consecutive months in September, an Industry Ministry official said an even brighter future for outbound shipments is expected. And with this year's figure from January to September surpassing the $38.4 billion recorded for the same period in 2022, the official added the total value of exports for 2023 is also likely to pass last year's total of $54.1 billion. Production in September dipped slightly on year due to partial strikes within the industry, but has hovered above 300,000 units for 13 consecutive months. The Industry Ministry expects production to hit at least 400,000 vehicles by the end of 2023 if the trend continues, a figure not seen since 2018. On the domestic front, sales of new cars decreased 4.7% on year in September. Sales of eco-friendly cars increased around 2% from the year before. However, EV sales dropped 34% in September, something the Environment Ministry said was due to an announcement on expanded subsidies, which was set for the 25th of that month. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
The U.S. has put forth new export controls to stop China from getting advanced computer chips. The updated rules are much stricter than earlier ones, as they include restrictions on chips with lower performance and ways to prevent circumvention through a third country. Lee Seung-jae has more.
The U.S. Department of Commerce on Tuesday announced a set of rules to update and strengthen its restrictions on the export of advanced computing semiconductors to China. The Commerce Department's Bureau of Industry and Security released an update to rules for strengthening export controls after guidelines were published a year ago to restrict China from purchasing and manufacturing high-end chips deemed critical for military advantage. Among the updated rules are notification requirements for the export of certain chips with performance just below the restricted threshold. It also includes new rules to prevent companies from China and other countries of concern from securing controlled chips through their foreign subsidiaries. According to Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, the updates on the measures are set up to increase the effectiveness of U.S. controls and further shut off pathways to evade restrictions. She added that the controls remain Washington's clear focus on military applications and confront the threats to its national security posed by the Chinese government's military-civil fusion strategy. Meanwhile, the Commerce Department also added 13 Chinese companies to its entity list, a list of firms considered to be involved in activities contrary to U.S. national security and foreign policy interests. Tuesday's release noted that foundries producing chips for listed firms will need a Bureau of Industry and Security license before the foundries may send such chips to these entities or parties acting on behalf of these entities. The latest announcement comes after the department issued a rule last week updating general authorizations for South Korean chipmakers Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix to continue supplying their China-based plants with certain U.S. semiconductor manufacturing equipment. 이승재, Arirang News.
And in response, the South Korean government says the new U.S. restrictions on AI chip exports to China will not significantly impact domestic companies with operations there. According to the Trade Ministry on Wednesday, the impact of the U.S. curbs on South Korean companies will be limited as semiconductors for consumer products such as smartphones will not be subject to them. Samsung and SK Hynix were also earlier granted verified end-user status for their semiconductor plants in China, meaning that most equipment can be exported without seeking multiple individual licenses. China's GDP growth in the third quarter of this year exceeded economists' forecasts, reaching 4.9% year-on-year. That's according to China's National Bureau of Statistics on Wednesday, though the figure is down from 6.3% the quarter before. It is higher than the first quarter of 2023, as there are signs of stabilization. In the recent months, China's central bank has been providing liquidity to its banking system, and there have also been economic stimulus efforts from its government. Also, the country reported a stronger growth in industrial production and retail sales in September from a year before. As the economic growth is stronger than expected, there's a more optimistic outlook for the economy, which could mean Beijing reaches its target of 5% this year. The quick rise of generative artificial intelligence in the workforce has led to projections of a great transformation in the way people work in the future. In Poland, one company is experimenting with an AI robot CEO. Taking a closer look can help us think about how the future of businesses and jobs will change depending on the role AI robots play. Yoon has the details.
A drinks company in Poland has recently appointed a humanoid robot as an experimental CEO. Her name is Mika, an AI robot powered by ChatGPT-style large language models. Her roles include conducting team meetings, verifying potential client lists, and providing well-reasoned decisions to the board of directors.
Well, as a robot CEO, I don't really have weekends. I'm always on 24/7, ready to make executive decisions and stir up some AI magic.
Mika's decision-making process relies on extensive data analysis, which means her contributions are devoid of personal bias. But she doesn't have actual executive powers, like hiring and firing personnel.
There is no concern like artificial intelligence could hire or fire somebody. It's still the major decisions, significant decisions are still in human executive team hands.
Experts forecast that the rise of such humanoid social robots could affect the way businesses work in the next 5 to 10 years. Some people have expressed concerns of such AI robots taking away jobs, but the robots themselves claim this will not happen. During a news conference with robots in Geneva, the robots advised reporters that they could be more efficient leaders than humans, but wouldn't take anyone's job away and had no intention of rebelling against their creators.
Do you think we should be excited or scared by the rise of humanoid robots?
That's a difficult question. I think it depends on how they are used and what purpose they serve. We should be cautious, but also excited for the potential of these technologies to improve our lives in many ways.
I will be working alongside humans to provide assistance and support, and will not be replacing any existing jobs.
Expert analysis and forecast remain mixed. The World Economic Forum projected new technologies to lead to a net loss of some 14 million jobs by the year 2027. Meanwhile, Goldman Sachs estimated that if half the world's businesses introduced AI workforce, global GDP would increase by 7% over the next decade. While it is still early to know what a future of humans and AI working together will look like, it could create both threats and opportunities. 이은진, Arirang News.
South Korea will start giving a new vaccine for the most recent COVID-19 variant beginning this Thursday. This vaccine, known as XBB 1.5, was specifically developed to target the current XBB variant and will be provided free of charge to all residents until the end of March next year. According to the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency, there have been no observed side effects on the immune system when people get both the new COVID-19 and influenza vaccines simultaneously. The agency strongly recommends that individuals over the age of 65 receive the vaccine, as there are concerns about a dual resurgence of COVID-19 and the flu this winter. People between the ages of 12 and 64, regardless of their previous vaccination history, can receive a shot once within the free vaccination period. As South Korea's role in the world continues to grow along with its alliance with the U.S. and as a global pivotal state, the country's values are reinforcing democratic values in the world. This is according to Victor Cha, a former U.S. official on Asian affairs and an eminent expert on Korean Peninsula affairs. Our presidential correspondent Oh Soo-young sat down with him.
South Korea is now an equal partner of the United States, with the potential to join the Group of 7 nations to cooperate on mounting global security threats and challenges. That's according to Victor Cha, a former US National Security Council Director on Asian Affairs, speaking to Arirang News in Seoul. Amid reports of North Korea increasing weapons exchanges with Moscow, Cha voiced concern that Pyongyang's emboldened posture could make it harder to deter the regime's missile and nuclear ambitions.
The North Koreans were able to do quite well at gaining all the parts it needed for their ICBM program despite very harsh sanctions. So I worry about, especially if Russia facilitates it, I worry that the North Koreans will be able to get away with a lot.
He underscored the need for stronger deterrence measures by Seoul, Washington and Tokyo based on their trilateral Camp David agreements to ramp up three-way military measures to deter Pyongyang and mechanisms to jointly address common challenges across the Indo-Pacific region.
Yeah, I mean, South Korea, I think, is an equal partner. It used to be the case that the United States was sort of the senior ally and Japan and Korea were the junior partners. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think it all starts with US, Japan, Korea. If that relationship is strong, then I think the United States feels like it's on solid footing, whether it's managing the rise of China or whether it's seeking broader regional architectures in Asia. The US, Japan, Korea relationship is core. It's core to that, based on common security interests, but common values, common norms, these sorts of things.
In this push for freedom, human rights and a rules-based global order, President Yoon last year became the first Korean leader to attend the G7 meeting as a guest nation and was invited again to the Hiroshima summit in May. Cha believes the group of advanced democracies could become a G8 to include South Korea.
Yeah, I think so. Right now, the UN Security Council is not really functional because of China and Russia. Which means the United States and others need to seek out a new venue. But I do think, we're at a critical point right now in terms of being able to pull together 3 allies to move forward to shape the environment in which China will rise, and to work on things like supply chain, countering disinformation, these sorts of things.
With disinformation by state actors shaping biased views on global affairs, Cha also touched upon the role of media outlets in democracies to promote unbiased, accurate content.
Groups like Arirang, Yonhap, others that are sort of news-based, not with a lot of editorializing, if they make themselves available to these countries that are targets of Chinese disinformation, they can dramatically change the, I don't want to say alignment, the color, if you will, of the countries. They would no longer have to listen to Chinese media and populate the media platforms with Chinese content.
having highlighted Seoul's democratic coming of age and growing soft power in his book co-authored by Ramon Pacheco Pardo. Cha noted how Seoul is taking initiative on areas like global development, health, supply chains and nuclear energy. In its quest to become a global pivotal state, Cha said South Korea has a lot to offer beyond its interests to benefit the world. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Autumnal showers will be soaking parts of South Korea tomorrow. With the rain, overall moisture levels will rise, causing stuffy and warmer conditions for the morning hours. Seoul will be starting off warmer than average at 16 degrees. As for the overall amount of rainfall, Chungcheongdo and Gyeongsang-buk-do provinces will see 5 to 40 millimeters. Other regions will see relatively less, with only about 5 to 20. While showers will taper off for most regions late tomorrow night, parts of the south will see rain continuing into Friday evening. Showers may come suddenly without notice, so make sure to have your umbrellas handy when heading out. Rain will start from northern and central regions tomorrow. Morning temperatures in Seoul and Busan will start off at 16 degrees. Daytime highs in Seoul will get up to 19, Gwangju 23, Busan will be warm at 24 degrees. This weekend is forecast to be the coldest morning of the season so far, so make sure to plan accordingly. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world. Well, that brings an end to tonight's newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with the latest news. Good night.
I'm live! 저를 도와주시는 분들이
저희와 함께 해주시는 세션분들
아무리 봐도 없지. 펜션 같은데 아니라고 아무도 안 하는 거고.